I suppose I would be more outraged internally if, you know, it weren't ultimately something that happened pretty much all the time, which is that rather than engage in rational thinking, people, when confronted with evidence that they don't like, will ultimately resort to conspiratorial thinking rather than actually just face the truth of the matter. And in fact, my criticism of the right wing and the Fox News audience has been pretty consistently that these people do not want the truth and that they've demonstrated an active contempt for the truth all around. And when confronted with the truth, and it's a truth they don't like, they will resort to distorting, the picture in order to refuse to actually engage with what has been pretty much proven beyond any, reasonable shadow of a doubt about what's going on. The Highland Park shooter has been ultimately identified, and his name is Robert Crimo III. And I think that what pisses me off the most is that we have photos of this guy and videotape taken of him attending Trump rallies with Trump flags and everything. And admittedly, not everybody at a Trump rally is necessarily going to be, a full-blooded Trump supporter. Some of them are just going to be people that are doing the work of reporting, to their respective audiences what's going on at these particular rallies, and attendance numbers and everything else at the actual publication in order to bring the news to us. But this guy is pretty much a raving Trump supporter. I mean, he has himself wrapped up and draped up in a Trump flag, and there are people that are going to sit here and be like, well, I don't believe the fact that he's an actual Trump supporter because of the fact that he is wearing the Trump insignia and everything. And I'm just sitting here like, there's a consistent pattern at this point of far right wing white boys going on shooting rampages for, among other things, the fact that they can't get laid. Like, and the sad part is that like the most disturbing and sad part about that is that that's now a common part of our narrative. It's just, I went out and killed six people because I couldn't get the, like my life is over because I can't manage to, you know what I mean? Like it's stupid and absurd, and the amount of entitlement that you have to be suffering from to be like Elliot Rogers is rather sickening. And yet, it's always us left wingers who are, accused of having a sense of entitlement, and yet, consistently we get trounced out in elections. We get kicked. We we lose election after election. We have a pattern of basically not getting what we want in the first place. It would be nice. Like, I would love a world in which if somebody like this, and there was enough evidence that consistently proved that they were a Trump bet, people would believe it. But no, we live in a world instead where rather than just accept that Bobby Crimo was a Republican who went on a fucking rampage, like, and in spite of all that, and in spite of the fact that there's literally a Democratic president in power at the moment that this video has been recorded, although maybe in the future, we switch parties that are in control of things. In spite of all that, like, we have all these people that are like, yeah, here's a fucking Antifa. I mean, like, and the Democrats clearly turn a blind eye to the Antifa, and it's like, man, like, there is a qualitative difference at this point. Like, I know the nature of the violence that exists on both sides and the political theories that go behind a lot of it. I mean, the far left might like fuck up your property, but that's largely because of the fact that they see so many of you and your politics and the libertarians as being like my property. And so when, the left has anger, where do you think it directs its anger at? But on people's stuff. But the far right, like, That's the side, like, a lot of people don't believe it because of the fact that they literally, like, they're so stupid and so dumb that they actually believe, National Socialist, therefore leftist, in, the party name of the National Socialist German Workers' Party. But, if that were fair or true conclusion-wise, then, we can pretty much reason that, the People's Republic of North Korea, and all that stuff is accurately named in a fair name fucking party in a fair name country. Obviously it's a dictatorship, and then it wouldn't be fair to argue that what they named themselves is what they actually are and represents their form of government. So, the Nazis may have been the National Socialist German Workers' Party, but that doesn't mean they were actually socialist at all, at any point. And I mean, one of the big differences between like socialist and what the Nazis put together is, you could argue, oh, but they both stole people's property and redistributed it. That still does not make them fucking socialist, okay? Like, the fascist will steal your shit just as readily because of the fact that, they believe in their ideology of racial supremacy, and that, there's this, Aryan race that's better than everybody else. I mean, yeah, the far right will take your shit too if they believe you're a member of the inferior races. So, the Nazis were always a far right wing party, and one of the most, just head scratching things about, Hitler and his group of fascist thugs was just, this realization that this guy has an opinion on everything. Right on down to the idea that there are forms of degenerate art that the motherfucker, like, he literally believed that there were some forms of art that represented like a low culture that was less sophisticated than everybody, else, and by the good Aryan artwork, like, please. I mean, this guy had his nose in fucking everything, and in subjects that were, inherently subjective and inescapably, as if, there is an objectively right wing opinion about art, and like there is an objectively right wing view of it, which, I don't ultimately believe at all. But, I've gone on, to a considerable length about a lot of bullshit that didn't need to be brought up here. I would be shocked. I think I would be more mortified by the reality that, America has this troglodyte faction, and that it runs right rampant here through YouTube, of people who like sincerely and honestly believe that, this guy who went and killed a bunch of people is, a member of the far left and is a member of the Antifa. But, I can tell that he isn't, because look how many people are dead in this. This guy had a full on gun, and was shooting people at some, mass parade. I mean, it doesn't fit the profile of left wing violence, to be the least. I mean, the left will, in a fit of rage, break your stuff, but they're not gonna fucking kill you. And the right will. The right honestly believes in shit like the social order. They honestly believe in the idea that, there is a social hierarchy, and that, everything in that social hierarchy is justified, and that, everything belongs in its place. You know what I mean? Like, they believe in this whole natural order of things, whereas people like me believe, like, entropy being what it is, and, the second law of thermodynamics being what it is. I don't really believe there really is anything as the natural order. I mean, it would be more accurate to state that the natural state of the universe is unstructured chaos, and that, maybe patterns of order will emerge naturally within chaos, but that doesn't mean that, the bigger picture isn't ultimately chaotic. And so, the very phrase "the natural order" would seem to me to be an oxymoron that just, it can't exist in the first place. I mean, so, the idea that anybody has a place is obscene on its face. But aside from all that, and aside from that line of thinking, it's just I'm not shocked, and I really, I really don't think that this fits ultimately the pattern of left Antifa violence at the end of the day, and I think that it's disgusting. I think that it, it's still, however, a bit disturbing that nothing's changed and that America's attitude, it has been like punching a glacier that just doesn't ultimately change its opinions in light of new factual information. No, it just digs its heels in on the bullshit that it's uncritically accepted, and has the whole way. See, my view of the American political system is that we have one side, the Democrats, who actually ever fixes a problem, and admittedly sometimes they fuck up, and sometimes what they do just doesn't make sense, and sometimes it's nonsensical, like, and sometimes they should do far more. But then on the other, we have this other party that complains and bitches up a storm about what the Democrats are up to, and moans like the town crier, who screams that the sky is falling, the sky is falling. They are the ultimate fucking chicken littles that are constantly screaming about how democratic policies will result in disaster and that America as we know it is already, over. And yet here America is, like nothing happened to it. And they engage in catastrophic, hyperbole about everything, which is, this idea that the Democrats will destroy America. And it's like America will be just fine under their rulership. Maybe its economy will not be in the same state, that it was in before they took power, but America, it's not going away. It's not disappearing. And my I think grand frustration is that we've got one party that actually ever addresses anything, and we've got another that moans up a storm about what the other side of the aisle is up to, and that you know, implies ultimately that if they take power, they'll make everything better. But the Republicans have won, election after election after election. And what have they done? Everything they complained and accused the Democrats of, they went and became more guilty of. I mean, they'll complain, for instance, about the national debt. They'll complain and bitch up a storm about what, this country owes to the rest of the world. And then when they got in power, what do? They cut rich people's taxes and start two wars on credit. I mean, these people are completely hollow and phony. Everything they're calling the Democrats out on, they will do when they take power. I don't trust the Republicans. I mean, they've proven that they aren't trustworthy. But here we are. Here we are in 2022, and Robert Crimo is apparently, a member of the Antifa because, we have sycophantic enablers of Republican rule.